What's up, everyone? This is Dave. Tonight we are working on a sagittar olatar. Sorry, I overslept. It took me a little nap and woke up a little late. I ain't gonna bullshit. But, anyways, thanks for joining us. Black Label Painting. Tonight I will be focusing on showing you guys my reds and how I do reds. This is going to be like the standard mechanicum Mars type red paint job I'm doing for a client, and let me just double check, make sure everything's going good on the stream side. I'm showing you guys my alright, so we are up and running.
Taco Bell has made a shell entirely out of fried chicken. Sounds crazy, but is it? That's what they said about the first car.
There we go, a little bit of back feed there. Mute that shit. Anyways, so I'm going to start with the tracks, the track pieces. I didn't glue none of mine on. Of course, I want to be able to get to all the metal goobly is down underneath there. But alright, over a black base, I typically, to go to get my dark, rich red, I usually go with a Model Air Color Fire Red over black primer. 71.084. It's really good red for going over blacks if you want a really dark, rich red. Put a few drops in there. Alright. Good little test spritz. Just helps if I tighten the needle. And we're golden. Alright, so we're going to go and start with just this piece right here. Typically, whenever I do reds, I'll bring the camera down a little bit more so you guys can see it a little bit closer. So you can see how I do this. So unprofessional. Alright. Typically, whenever I do the reds, to give them like the nice rich fade to black and give it the real dark, rich look, instead of spraying directly at the outside edge, I will typically just spray, like I'll aim like right here and try to get the majority of my spray to come down right there on that piece. That way just the overspray will just feather it towards the edge per se. So I'm going to start in the center. Just gently lay it on. You can see where how I did it right there. I kept my spray like real tight inside here. That way the overspray gives us that real nice feather out to the black. Uh-oh. I'm happy with the trigger there. Just like Duncan says, you know, just a couple thin coats. Same principle with an airbrush. A couple thin coats, then build up to the color you want. And that's pretty much how with the red. Move some light off. On to the next one. Now the majority of this model is going to be red to match the sagittar. The one with the damp shoots the Ray, I don't know. Forget the name. The other one I did for the same client. There. I don't know if you can get it where it ain't so much in the reflection. You see it's like a really burnt, weathered red. I'll come back in there and highlight a few pieces. You'll notice just how it fades to black. Looks really, really, really good. That's the effect I'm going to be going for on the whole model. Because I don't want to do like the traditional bright red of, you know, the mechanicum. Like when it really first came out and started getting really big. Everybody was doing them red. Well, this client, we talked about it, and since everybody and their mammy is doing the damn metallic red, that this red would be fine, because it's not as overdone as it used to be. But same principles. You just pick a spot on the model and just go to town. Or just have a nice weathered. The way you control your spray will make it look nice and antique look almost. Just hitting highlights, spraying in certain spots. Looks really good. Trigger control on this is key. I'm barely using any trigger at all. Just enough to get the color to come out. Let me check something real fast. Well. Alright, get back at it. For those of you that will be attending Stiff 3, you'll get to see this one at Stiff 3. It's going to be on one of the tables. I'm not really sure how we're going to be doing it. I just know they're going to be on some of the tables with the Olitar and the Sagittar. I'm probably saying that completely wrong, but as a mechanicum player, I should know this. But I don't really play these big models, because I haven't really played any really big games past 2,500 points. Spraying lots of red. Typically, I like to paint things in sub-assemblies, but big models like this, it doesn't really bother me whenever I paint them when they're fully assembled to an extent. I wouldn't do a Warlord completely assembled, but something like this where the majority of the model is going to be the main color that I'm spraying, it's not a big deal. if I can get you a good view so you can see what's going on. See down in there? Excuse me. Down in there, that's the look we're going for. Just the weathered, antique look. That way, whenever I do a little bit of chipping. Sorry, I had to get a drink. And do a little bit of weathering powders on the tracks and stuff like that. It'll look really, it'll really help tie all those other effects together. I'm not going to be completely finishing this model tonight. I will be doing pretty much all my red. I'm trying to knock out all my red base. And I'll do a little bit of silver work. Maybe a little bit of gold work. But I won't be able to finish it. I'm going to break it up into a couple episodes. I'll try to finish it up tomorrow on air. Like, try to do another Twitch tomorrow as well. As long as my kids aren't being a holy terrors, I think the old lady will let me get away with doing another one. Not that she would stop me, she'd still let me, but of course I'd have to deal with the repercussions of that. Cruising right along here. If you'll notice, it's real sporadic. That I'll just put my reds here, there, and everywhere. It doesn't have to be completely uniform. Just for the simple fact of the weathered and just beat up look that I'm going to be going for on this model. So it doesn't have to be complete pristine coverage. More drops of paint in here. So yeah, whenever you're doing a lot of, use your trigger control, you can make the paint go pretty far as well. I mean, that was only 5 drops that I started out with. 5 more drops, and I've gotten 2 tracks and 85% of the gun done. So, trigger control, you don't have to lay the color on when you're using an airbrush. Whoops. I won't be doing a whole crazy amount of OSL on this one like I did the other one. Just because since the other one had all the sonic weaponry and all that, I thought it would be cool to do OSL on that one. I will be doing some heat transfer on the end of the bellicosa. The end of the gun, I'll be doing some heat transfer, probably about that far back. Let me get you in view. Probably heat transfer back about that far. So, doing a lot of the gun red. A lot of the model will be red. Checking something real quick. Olatar, okay. Yeah, the Olatar was the other one that I did. So, like I said, there won't be as much OSL on the Sagittar as there was the Olatar that I did. Just gonna go back. Now that I've gotten like the coverage, most of my coverage on the body of the gun, I'll just go back and just sporadically hit highlights here and there. That's how I get that deep, rich, weathered red. Is I just you don't concentrate and cover the whole model. and then come back and try to do it. I just do it sporadically. I'll put my reds here, there, and everywhere, and I'll gradually build it up. The more you cover a spot, the brighter the red is going to become. When you're just dusting the area with red, it is giving you the look you want. How the hell do I get rid of this? Okay, well, the chat is up. Just all right. So again, if you'll notice how it's just a lot of trigger control and just sporadically placing the highlighted areas of red, just like a little more concentration here, a little more concentration there, and then I'll come back with another coat. I've already started it on this side, and then I'll concentrate on the bigger panels and doing it a little bit brighter, which will tie all of this in and make it look really good. So now that I just sporadically went around and hit everything, I'll come back in, do some focused red, and you'll see how it ties it all together. It's actually really simple. It's kind of like a lazy way of painting, but it looks really well. You're just putting a little bit of color here, a little bit of color there, and then you're tying it all together with filters and weathering powders. Won't be using any filters on this model. Just pretty much weathering powders will be what ties it all together. Yeah, my for those of you wondering what's going on with my feed here, you'll notice my little image on the lower left-hand portion of the screen is kind of fuzzy. Yeah, it's my lighting. I got like crap lighting right now, but I'm working on adding onto my house and making a studio. That way I can have a proper station set up and not nothing I just gotta put up and down and hope for the best result. There. Starting to look a little bit better, more the look I'm going for with it. Kind of like, I kind of self-taught myself how to do this. I watched a lot of videos how people did stuff, and I'll see how someone paints something, and I'll stare at it for a minute, and I'll try to analyze it and see how I could do it. And this is the way how I come up with, from seeing other people's work. This is the way I devised to come up with how to get the red and how the deep, rich reds that I like when I do mechanicum. Now, ironically, when I first started using airbrush, the first stuff that I started painting was mechanicum, was this red. So this is like what taught me this basic skill right here is something that I learned first starting out how to airbrush. So it's really easy to do. You just got to take your time and just pay attention to your surface area and keep hitting it until you get a desired look. Because the majority of this model is going to be red. I'll have all of my metallics and stuff like that to come back in. Like I'll do this silver, I'll do all this silver, you know, I'll do the tips and parts of the gun silver. I might OSL that right there. I don't know, a little bit of OSL right inside those fins, where it may look like it's charging up. I won't go too overboard with OSL on this one. just because this one's so much different from the. Oh my god, I forget the name. From the Olatar. Don't know why I can't remember that. So bad. Damn mechanicum player. Playing one of these damn units. Alright. So, that's just about the desired look I'm gonna go with. Let me put a little bit more up here. You can imagine like the light. Okay. The way I like to try to imagine is okay, if the model is sitting out in the sun, okay, so the sun's beaming down on top of it, so the brighter portion of the model will be from the light coming down on it. So I'll come from the top and then I'll put it a little bit more heavy just to give it the brighter effect, like being out in the sun, being out in the weather. It's going to be a little bit more sun-drenched. And then that way, when you're looking at it like this, it looks pretty good. It's pretty bright. Turn it to the side, you can see the effect that I'm going for. Just it fades into the black. And most of the times, I won't even spray. Like the underside of this, I'll probably leave that right there, like really dark. Sometimes I'll leave it black. Just to complete the look. You know, hands down, my favorite thing to paint is always going to be Titans. I mean, I just love painting Titans. Like, I could literally paint those things day in and day out. But, a very close second is anything mechanicum related. Definitely my happy place. That's one thing about, I don't know, the way I would look at it if I was paying someone to paint my miniatures, is you're going to want to find somebody that really enjoys painting something that you want painted. Because if they really enjoy to paint it, then it's going to show in their work, and they're going to be proud of it, and it's going to look good. And you're going to get your money's worth because they're not going to be happy with it, with half-assing anything that they really enjoy doing. They shouldn't, let me put it that way. Some people are just natural-born half-assers. That is basically the look I'm going for on the gun. Now, I'll come in here and I'll brush paint in silver in here, you know, in here, probably part of that, you know, I'll put silver here, there, and everywhere. Of course, all that down there will be a metallic. But the airbrush speeds it up so much that all I really got to do is come in and do detail work and a little bit of cleanup work, and this dude will be just about done. Airbrush makes things so much faster. But again, this is pretty much the look I'm going for. I'll throw a couple more spots, but just about what I was going for. That way it'll match the. Oh, excuse me. That way it'll match the Olatar that I did. Thanks, man. I like the look, how it comes out there, Jake. I don't really paint a whole lot of mechanicum red anymore. Just it's pretty much a long across request. But whenever I do red mechanicum, this is the color that I do it. This is how I do it. I'm not a huge fan of the metallic mechanicum. I just feel like everybody's jumped on that bandwagon and just worn it out. Don't get me wrong, the effect looks really good whenever executed correctly. And David Brains, he does like a hell of a job. There's a couple guys out there that do really good work when it comes to that red, the metallic red. But here, you'll see the basic, the outlook that I'm trying to go for. Just the nice weathered red. Put that all back together. Then we'll start on the front. Alright, now the front section. Okay. Now again, we'll pick an angle of attack, and we'll just go at it. So I guess I'm gonna start right here, and imagine there'd be the top part going down, the main focus of light. Again, whenever you can, another technique you could use when you're doing reds like this is use a black weathering powder, and you can come in to like get the edges and the corners of the panels, of the large flat panels, and even around that area right there, and it'll give it that even a little bit more deep, rich. It'll make it real nice and rich red. You'll notice whenever I do this area right here, I won't go all the way to the end, either end. I'll let the overspray kind of build out, and that helps give that effect a little bit more. It's not so much complete coverage when you paint reds like this, as letting the overspray do a lot of the work for you. I'm going to do some highlights. So we hear everybody talk a lot about trigger control. Is if you do like a thin layer, and then you come back over with your trigger, using the correct amount of trigger control, you can change the color because all you're doing is you're layering the colors on there. Thin, like I said, same principle as, two thin coats. Works really well. That's that. Come back in here for this dude. Typically I don't glue the guns on, but we'll make do. Moment of ignorance there when I glue that on there. It's just going to cause a little more work for myself when it comes to doing it. But it's okay. We'll make it happen. See, there's another really see how it turned out. Just my focus of spray is on the sharp edges. And not all the way towards the end. When I put this back together, you get the look I'm going for. And you see how easy it is to achieve this look. I mean, it's really... I'll have to go back in with some... Every once in a while, I mean, this will happen to you. It's no big deal. All I really got to do is come back in and spray this area right here where it didn't get complete coverage of black. I'll just spray it with black and then come back with the red again and fix all that. I'll show you how I do that here in a minute, because that way I can progress the piece as a whole. I'll just do it right here on the stream. That's essentially it. I mean, it's really easy to achieve this look. It's a lot easier than what most people would think. It's definitely a novice skill set. I would call it a novice skill set, because it's the first thing that I learned how to do. That's in the gun, do some more highlights. Definitely doing some OSL on that right there. I'm not going to load this piece down with OSL like I said earlier. Opposite source lighting, for those of you who don't know what OSL means. But I'm going to put some on there, just so I can tie in this with the Olatar. See, we've been going for, what, about 30 minutes or so? In 30 minutes time, I was able to get all of the color, all of the base color done. All the base color done on it. So that's pretty good. It's pretty not bad. If I really sat down and tried cranking it out, of course when I do these twitches, they slow me down a little bit, but I don't mind it. They slow me down because I have to explain what I'm doing. So if you would have yanked, I don't know, about 15 minutes or so out of that, I could have literally laid down the base on this whole model in about 15 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes. So that's typically all I spend on, you know, typically about the amount of time I spend on base works, 15, 20 minutes tops. Make sure it's just nice and clean. And we will go on to some silver work. I am going to I use a lot of like gunmetal and plate mail and stuff of that nature, but I'm going to use gunmetal from Army Painters. Now you do want to reduce this down. I mean, it comes out pretty thin right out of the dropper. You could probably spray that no problem as is. Their paints are a little more thin than others, than Vallejo. But I'll actually use airbrush thinner. I use Vallejo airbrush thinner to thin all my paints that aren't specifically designed and formulated for airbrush. You don't have to, I've said it a million times, but you don't have to go out and specifically buy airbrush paints. Because whenever you buy like a standard bottle of Vallejo, even Model Air, or even the Games Workshop's colors, you're just basically buying it in concentrate. You buy that airbrush thinner, you can thin just about any paint. My favorite paints to run through an airbrush, ironically, is one of the thickest paints on the market, and that's P3. I really like P3 paints, but that stuff is really thick paint. Just thin it down 50-50, and you're good to go. Now I'm going to go ahead and tape off some, that way I can keep my overspray off of my red. I like to use this. This is frog tape. It's kind of expensive at Wally World. It's like what, $10, $11 this one roll of tape, but it works really well. It's formulated not to really let paint bleed through. Now, when I say bleed through, it's like if you was to spray this area and pull the tape off, there'd be like a funky line that's of wetness. That's bleeding. It'll bleed through the tape. This tape, like I said, it's formulated to reject paint, I guess you could say. Paint doesn't really stick to it very well. So, and that will work for what I needed to do. Alright, so, again, thinking of light. So this is going to be in the tracks. So the main area you're going to see is down at a 45-degree angle. So, and this will help with weathering per se. It'll kind of help weather it. So if you spray down at a 45-degree angle, your angles are doing the rest. You can see how it transitions into black. That's the look you're going for. And if you wanted to, you can come back in here with a filter, a wash per se, and just wash the whole area. Or you can just leave it like this, come in and pick out your detail work. Like I'll throw some copper and some brass in here, and that'll make it look good. It'll make it come through the tracks a little bit. Ooh. This piece was washed. Look at that. Thank God it's under there. That's how you know it didn't get washed as good as you should have washed it. Like, I washed this, I soaked all these over 24 hours before I assembled the model. But apparently there was a lot more release agent on there than what I thought there was. But luckily, that will be hidden with tracks. See? Never even know it was there. Bada boom. But again, looking in the tracks, looking in there, I gotta clean a little bit of flash off. Looking in the tracks, get off there. With the way I sprayed the metal on there at the 45-degree angle, it did a lot of the work for me as far as the effects and such. Missed a couple pieces of flash I gotta knock out of there. Come back in there with some red and fix that as well. Not a huge deal. Not very time consuming. I find that painting is having the ability to erase your mistakes. That's how I've always looked at painting. It's like knowing how to hide your mistakes. It's like painting cars. The big secret behind painting a car is not so much the base work, it's not so much the detail work, it's the ability to clean up what you did. As far as when it comes to clear coat, all the work of a paint job of a car is done in the clear coat. How good you buff it and all that jazz. I'd say 90% of it, not all of it, but 90% of it. We'll rephrase that. But if you'll notice, I kind of like sprayed. A lot of the concentration of spray is from middle way up, and that's because I came in at a 45-degree angle on the piece, and a lot of that I'll just leave black. Do the same thing on the other side. Do it right, it won't take but just a couple passes to get the look you're going for. That way, now I'll have to come back in. I'll tape off the gun and do the same thing right there. But that's the look we're going for. Alright, so now I will do the gun. This is the part where I was like, I should have not glued that on, but it's all good. Still make it work. Alright, so again, I'll do my 45s directly down and then 45 on this gun. I'll probably use a wash on that because it didn't come out the way I wanted it to. It's no big deal, it's easy to fix. Or like you can always, if you wanted to build it up, you can always come back in with here like a black and spray the black across. You know what, I'll do that. Instead of talking about it, I'll just do that so you can see what I'm talking about. Hopefully my Sotar is usable. I was soaking it. Some purple power. And plan on using the Sotar tonight. But, hey, it happens. I should know better. of a clean out real fast. I can already see a little bit of funk left in the bottom of this bowl. I was soaking it, because like I said, I wasn't planning on using it. But things change. It's that technical difficulties I was talking about whenever I put the post. Yeah, man, I'm not stingy with the knowledge that I've learned. I don't mind sharing it. Thanks for joining in, man. I like making money painting stuff. Don't get me wrong, it's nice, but I also love sharing what I've learned. I'm not worried about potentially losing a commission by not hoarding all my knowledge. I like to show people how I do things. I like to help people learn how to do it as well, because hey, at the end of the day, we all gotta be closers. Putting an end to unpainted miniatures. I say that in the last game that I played was a completely unpainted Solar Ox army, because I don't ever get time to paint my own stuff. I'll get to it eventually. We're getting there. Sorry, guys. All right. Oh, man. You know, I look at it like sacrilege. I look at it like there's, whenever people go to other commission painters or stuff like that, you're paying a commission painter for their style of way they paint. Because you like the way they do things. I don't think it's because anyone's any better than... I don't consider myself any better of a painter than anyone else or any other commission painter. It's just, I hope people come to me because they like my style of painting. There's definitely a bunch of badass painters out there. So you can see what I'm talking about. You just come across the base of that, just add the black and it adds the shadowing. It's real nice effect. Like I'll kind of come at like a little triangle, I guess you could say. Instead of going straight across, I'll come up a little bit to an angle and go down. A little bit of triangle, just to help with the lighting. This will all be black. Hosing. And there we have it. Unwrap this and hopefully it doesn't rip off any of my work. Because sometimes resin wants to be a bitch like that. No matter how hard or how much you wash it, still, oh, thank goodness. Doesn't get all of the release agent, but there we go. That's the look I was going for. And you put just like this. There we go. Alright. Now, before I said I screwed up on something. See how I screwed up right there? I didn't really get complete coverage on that. I'll go ahead and just, with this over a quarter of a cup of black, I'll just spray it in there and fix it. I'm back with my reds. So you notice I get reds, the blacks all over that. It's okay, because it'll be a-okay when I come back in and spray the red. All right. Now also you can, that's a pretty good. See how the black is, the overspray has caught with the overspray of the red, and it met in the middle, and it really transitioned the color really good. That's another good example of blending the colors with the airbrush. I could come along and spray in the bottom of these tracks. I mean, I'll do it right now, it's no big deal. And just barely let it touch some of the area that I went over. And it makes it a little deeper. It looks really good. You can see some of those spots where I cleaned up. Missed something else. Luckily, whenever you miss something on these models, it's not the end of the world. It's just easy fix. Like, I missed some mold line right there. Scraped it off, got rid of it. Come back with the black. And then I'll just come back in with the red and then patch it all up like it never happened. The ability to erase your mistakes. Nummy. Kool-Aid. Gotta love Kool-Aid. You got 5 kids, man. You tend to drink a lot of Kool-Aid. That's all that's left in the damn house. The little shits drink everything else. I'm gonna clean this Sotar out. I'm done with it, pretty much. Nice and clean, that way I don't have to keep. Sometimes I'll get lazy and I'll just fill the bowl up with water and not completely clean out the paint. And I'll come back the next day and I'm like, shit, there's still paint in there. But as long as you put water in there, it won't dry because it's obviously full of water. But you'll want to get it out of there pretty quick. Boy drinks your beer. Well, my oldest is 12. My girls are 12. So I've got a little ways to go before I get to that point, and like I hope they don't come home and drink my liquor. I'll be kind of pissed. All right, let's go ahead and do the metallic on the back track. You know what? I'll do them on the tread real quick. Get this off of here so I don't do any overspray over everything. This one isn't completed. This one's completed. Okay, go ahead and do the track. Again, I still got some metal left over in my cup. I've really been trying to focus to be cognizant of wasting paint. So if I've got some left in the cup, instead of just pouring it out, I'll just find something that can use that color, even if it's another model on another project. I'll just spray it. Now I'm doing the same thing with these tracks. I'm concentrating my spray just in the center, and then I'll let the overspray work it all together. It come out a little thick over here, but I'll cover this with weathering powder. You won't see it too terribly thick right there like that. Just spray in the center and let the overspray do the rest of the work for you. Now I'll have to come back in and brush all the edges, but taking a couple steps out of the whole process of doing this. Just spray it right in the center. And let the overspray do the work for you. This is how I'm also able to get detail. I mean, you can just turn the pressure down bring the pressure down, and then you can really get in there in detail and just trigger control it. Watch your trigger control and your overspray, and you can get some really nice detail work by doing that. Another track to knock off. Oh, get off there. So we're coming up on the hour mark that I've been working on this model, and I've got the majority of it almost done. All of my airbrushing work was tied up in the base work. I still got the pressure down. The base work, and then just a little bit of detail work here. But I'll be able to come back and finish the model off. Like, I should be able to finish the model off tomorrow on the Twitch again. Like I said, I'm going to try to do this one wholly on Twitch because the client wants to actually use the footage that I record for one of their, what is it, some kind of, I forget what it was called or what he told me it was. It's like a little video. Hell, I don't even know what it's called. I'm drawing a blank right now. Still half asleep. So terrible at this. But you get it. He's going to use the footage for something. Something to do with stiff. Pretty if you're on there. Just chime in. I know you're listening. And your wife thinks it's creepy since my little shadow's on the side. Sweet. Now you could come back and use like a nice non-oil wash, and it'll help even more bring all the colors together over the panels here. I mean, that's another step you can use. I personally don't like doing that because if you execute this correctly, you shouldn't have to. But it can help bring all the colors together. Oh yeah, I'm going to do that. Still got some silver left? No. Out of silver. Alright. So, let's do this, finish this repair work. That way I can complete that step. If you guys are wondering, like, what the hell, I use like an old, like a ketchup bottle thing you use like at a picnic. I usually keep it full of water. You can fill it full of water. You can fill it full of your favorite cleaner. That way, whenever you're cleaning out your airbrush, when you're changing colors, it's just right there. I used to rush to the sink between every color change. Let's. Uh-oh. Apparently Twitch decided it was time for a commercial. Major havoc. Less pressure equals less paint? A question? Less pressure equals it's gonna spit out more paint per se. It's just gonna concentrate that paint in one spot. I'll do a little demonstration for you with this red. Why not? Screw it. So let's just use a paper towel here. So if I back the pressure way back, Just where it's just blown out a little bit. And see how now I'm barely pulling the trigger. The paint is not atomizing as much because there's less air to atomize it, so it's coming out thicker. So if you back the pressure down, it'll come out like a lot more paint will come out. Now if you raise the pressure, I don't even know, I think I'm running around 35, 40 or so. So full pressure, 40, 45 psi. Barely any trigger pulling, trigger movement, just barely. And I'm just barely moving it back, and I got that much to come out. Now, if I drop the pressure down, it'll still let out a fair amount of paint. It'll concentrate it. It'll be a lot more paint comes out. That makes sense. There's a lot less control. It's kind of sputtery. I mean, if you hammer the trigger all the way back, see, it really loads it. Bring the pressure up and hammer it all the way back. The pressure spreads it out more. It just, see what I'm saying? I'm not very good at explaining these things. Actually, quite terrible. That has a lot to do with trigger control when you get in those tight areas. The color of the red that I'm using it's Model Air Color Fire Red. Literally the best red I've found for doing these dark rich reds from the mechanicum or mechanicus or whatever the hell you want to paint. It works good for corn as well. But the part number is 71.084, and that is Fire Red. You can source it just about anywhere. I mean, I don't have a particular retailer or a wholesaler that I go to. Say, this actually would be a good example on this paper towel for what I'm doing. So, how I'm getting this effect here again, is think of this right here as the edge of the panel. Instead of spraying directly on the edge, like that right there, I'm spraying back here and letting my overspray run up to the edge. Where I'll concentrate my color just shy of the edge. Now, on this white paper towel, it's kind of hard to see how it does, but against a black background, that really fades out to the edge really nice. That's what gets this effect right here. I'm not spraying directly at the edge. I'm, just enough back. All right. Let's get back to fixing that piece. Where did you go? That's not it. There it is. Areas that I've prepared. See, a lot of my concentrating is right on that edge right there. I would say 98%, 95-ish% of what I know is all self-taught. I mean, I have taken some pointers from other painters, but a lot of what I learned is just trial and error over the last, what am I going on? 3 years now I've been airbrushing? Roughly 3 years? I've really been airbrushing that long. But I am thankful for the fact that my girlfriend is so awesome with my kids that I am able to spend a little bit more time painting as much as I do. I literally paint every single day. And my job also allows me to do this because I typically don't work a full 40 hours. I think I spend more time behind the airbrush than I do at FedEx. Hopefully nobody's watching that works with me. If you are, disregard that. But I think I'm pretty much done with the reds for the gun. Yeah, I got, to answer your question there, I've got one of these little valves on the bottom of my gun that I can adjust the pressure with right here. You know, that's all the way in. It's got a fair amount of pressure. Like, I think the factory pressure setting on this Badger compressor is 50 psi. So I never really mess with that. I just leave it with what it's at. I do all my adjustment from right here. Now, if you've got a... Where'd I put it? Damn it. Oh, yeah, here we go. A 105 Extreme. If you've got a 105 Extreme, you can actually adjust the pressure right here. They've got a really nifty adjustment right here on the tip of the gun. For anyone wanting to get into airbrushing, I always recommend this airbrush. I use the regular 105 more than anything, just because it's my workhorse. And then for detail work, I will use a Sotar 2020. But this essentially, the Extreme 105 is essentially the best of the 105 and the Sotar. You know, you put them both together and you got this one gun. It's got good detail work. Like I said, and this little adjustment up here is pretty neat. I like that. It's really nice. But for deep down, really good detail work, I use my Sotar. As dirty as it is right now. Alright, I think I finished repairing all of the red from the flash. Yeah. So now I'm on to the silver work on that gun. Too bad there's a whole lot of red in there that's going to go to waste. Damn it. That's alright. Maybe if you guys learn something from it, it's not a complete waste of paint. If anybody out there that's watching has any questions, man, don't be afraid to ask. I will definitely answer them to the best of my ability. You know, I'm not some like guru with an airbrush that's spent all this time in art classes and all this and all that and claim to know everything. You know, I'm just a self-taught asshole that learned a lot by trial and error. Essentially. You mess up enough, you learn not to do that again. Whenever I do my base work, I'll run with the pressure all the way adjusted. So I'm spraying 40 psi through it, 35, 40 psi. Whenever I do detail work, I'll back it down. I don't really have a gauge to let me know how much. I mean, a gauge right here would be nice. On my gravity feed gun, whenever I paint cars, I've got a gauge that tells me what I've got it broke down to. Oh. Another big secret with airbrushing that I've learned, Iwata, I haven't really used a lot of Iwata stuff. I'm not going to bash it because I really don't have a lot of experience with Iwatas. But a lot of people really like their Iwata airbrushes. I pretty much I started out with a Grex, not like the funky like trigger like a crazy little handle airbrush. I actually had a nice Grex that I started out with, and I learned a lot on that. I couldn't really get to the needle though, because I had like the sealed cylinder over the back of here. Yeah, I understand the pressure gauge is on the compressor. That's what the compressor itself is regulated to output. You're definitely going to want to have a way of adjusting your pressure from the compressor to the gun. You don't want to just rely on the pressure regulator from the compressor. Shit, I totally lost track of where I was going there with the... Another little... I've got this dude here that I use as well. Whenever it's on... I got to put it back on my needles. My little needle gauge here is a little jacked up on it, but this is a nice little piece that I use. I normally have it on my gun. It's just a secondary little water trap right before he goes into the gun. These things are like $30 at Hobby Town or Hobby Lobby, I guess. I think it was like $30. These are a good investment. I mean, you can never have too many water traps on your guns. Yeah, you can. This little piece right here is a Grex attachment. Let me see if I can find. It's just a Grex GMAC pressure adjuster. You should be able to buy these online. They shouldn't be too terribly expensive. But I highly recommend buying one of these just so you can adjust it at the gun, and you don't have to fiddle with your regulator on your compressor. All right, let's get back to it. Probably going to roll to about 8 o'clock my time, 8 o'clock Central, and shut her down around 8 o'clock. Just because dinner and 5 kids, and I'm lucky they're not in here making noise right now. But I will be able to have the majority of this model done when I shut the stream down. And then, like I said, I'll pick the stream back up again tomorrow on this model and try to complete it. I don't know if I'll be able to complete it tomorrow, but I'll try and run the stream tomorrow until it's completed. That way I can get this joker packed up and on its way to Texas. For Stiff 3. That's right, guys. You've heard it right. Stiff 3. Come to Stiff 3. They're sold out. Come anyhow. Fuck it. Come say hi. It's in Victoria, Texas. If you're in Texas, you should come hang out with the guys at TFL. Great bunch of guys. I'll go ahead and throw some plugs here while I'm looking for color. TFL guys do a weekly. It's been bi-weekly here last couple weeks, just because life and all that jazz. But it's typically weekly on Wednesdays. They'll do a live cast on YouTube. Bunch of banner, bunch of hobby stuff. The occasional penis joke may come into play. There's this guy on there who loves to talk about penis. His name is Josh De La Rosa. He's a great guy, but he's got a penis infatuation. Don't judge him. But check them out on Wednesdays. Starts typically around 9 o'clock. And they also have, because they've got like a conglomerate going on here with, you've got TFL Livecast, you've got the Forgotten Legion RFI, you've got 30K TV. I mean, these guys are doing it big. They are all my homies. I highly recommend you guys checking out any of the content that's coming out of Victoria, Texas. These guys are doing it big. They're definitely hobby fanatics. Anything to do with horse heresy, these guys are on it. See, I was able to do my trigger control a little bit better on this gun, so I wouldn't have to come back in with black. Warhound promotion still on? Yes, the Warhound promotion is still running all the way up until the last day of March. For those of you who don't know what that is, haven't checked out my page to see what it is, I am doing 15% off of my normal commission price.